"You are not coming." My father's voice was flat, like he was canceling a dentist appointment. We were standing in my parents' kitchen, the one with the granite counters my mother loved to show off. My sister's wedding invitation sat on the island between us, already addressed, already sealed, just not to me. "You'll embarrass her," Dad said. "Her groom's family is different. They're important. You're awkward. You make people uncomfortable." I looked at him and nodded once. "Okay." That's when my phone buzzed. Not a call, not a text, a Facebook notification. I opened it without thinking and froze, because the photo at the top of my feed was from my sister's wedding rehearsal dinner, and my father was in it, smiling, with his arm around a man I had met before, a man he had sworn he'd never speak to again, a man whose signature I recognized instantly. The room went quiet. Not awkward quiet. Final quiet. Dad was still talking. I couldn't hear him anymore. All I could see was the caption under the photo. "Couldn't have done this without you. Family first." I locked my phone and slid it into my pocket. "I understand," I said. "I won't come." He exhaled, relieved. That was the moment he thought he won. I drove back to Nevada that night. My wife Claire sat in the passenger seat, hands folded in her lap. She hadn't said much since Dad's house. She didn't need to. Claire had always been good at reading rooms. She'd clocked the shift the second Dad used the word embarrass. "You okay?" she asked as the desert opened up ahead of us. "Yeah," I said. "I'm fine." That wasn't a lie. It just wasn't the full sentence. We crossed the state line just after midnight. The sky was empty. No stars, just black. Area 51 didn't look like anything in movies. No aliens, no drama, just fences, floodlights, and the kind of quiet that hums instead of echoes. I'd been stationed there for 6 years. Logistics, systems, oversight. The boring stuff people forget matters. Until it does. I badged in the next morning like it was any other day. Wedding day. I could have taken leave. My supervisor had offered, even joked about it. "Family thing?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, "something like that." I walked the perimeter instead, checked manifests, signed off on transfers, stood on the ridge near the old hangars where phones barely worked. The wind was sharp, clean. No one asked questions. They never did. At lunch, I sat alone and scrolled Facebook again. More photos. My sister in white, her groom, Daniel Hargrove, in a tailored navy suit, his parents, his uncles, the ballroom at the Four Seasons in Santa Fe, chandeliers, crystal glasses, and there, again, my father, standing behind Daniel's father, close, too close. I zoomed in. The man beside him was Robert Hale, former board member, former investor, former friend, former defendant. I stared at his face longer than I should have. Then I closed the app and went back to work. The next morning, I was walking the base when my phone started vibrating non-stop. Texts, calls, missed calls. From my mother, from my sister, from a number I didn't recognize. I stopped near the admin building and finally answered my sister. "What did you do?" she asked. I smiled, just a little. "I went to work," I said. "No, don't play dumb. Dad's in trouble. Daniel's dad is furious. The lawyers are everywhere. People are saying the wedding photos are being taken down." I leaned against the concrete wall and looked out at the desert. "Oh," I said. "That." "What that?" she said. "What happened?" I unlocked my phone and opened Facebook again. The photo was gone. So was Robert Hale's profile. So was the post from the night before. I checked my email. 3 new messages, all from addresses ending in .gov. I didn't answer my sister right away. "I'll call you later," I said, and I hung up. Here's the thing no one ever noticed about me. I was never awkward. I was quiet, and quiet people hear things. They see patterns. They remember names. Years ago, before my sister met Daniel, before the engagement, before the champagne tastings, I'd been asked to sit in on a compliance review tied to a defense contractor.
It wasn't my lane, but they needed someone who understood logistics and data flow. The name on the file had jumped out at me then, Robert Hale. I'd mentioned it to Dad casually, once, at Thanksgiving. He'd gone pale. That's ancient history. Don't dig. So I hadn't. Not publicly. But I'd kept the folder. People think power looks like money, or confidence, or loud voices at weddings. Real power looks like patience. By noon, my supervisor called me into his office. "Off the record," he said, closing the door, "did you know your father was photographed with Robert Hale last night?" "Yes," I said. He studied me. "You understand why that's a problem?" "I do." "And you understand why you aren't—" I nodded. He slid a document across the desk. This was reopened this morning. The photo triggered an automated flag, facial recognition tied to a restricted individual at a high-profile event with federal contractors present. I scanned the page. Calm, familiar. They're asking for corroboration, timeline, context. "I can help," I said. "I know." He paused. "Your family won't like it." I thought of my father's voice. "You'll embarrass her." "I won't embarrass anyone. I'll just tell the truth." That evening, Claire met me at home with 2 cups of tea. "They called," she said. "Who?" "Everyone." She handed me a mug. "Your dad left a voicemail. He sounded scared." I sat down slowly. "I don't want to ruin her marriage." Claire didn't interrupt. She never did. "But I'm done being erased to make other people look clean." She nodded once. "Then do it properly." I took a sip and opened my laptop. The systems were already moving. I didn't need to. All I had to do was stop standing in the way. At 11:47 p.m., I received one final message from my father. "Please, call me." I stared at it for a long time. Then I turned my phone face down. Outside, the desert was quiet again. Inside, everything had already changed, and they still didn't know it yet. The first official knock didn't come to my door. It went to my father's office. At 8:12 a.m. Monday morning, 2 men in plain suits asked the receptionist for financial records related to Robert Hale between 2009 and 2016. They didn't raise their voices. They didn't flash badges dramatically. They just stood there, patient, like they already owned the time. By 8:20, my father's assistant was crying in the bathroom. By 8:37, my father was calling me again. This time, I answered. "Son?" he said. His voice was lower than I'd ever heard it. Not angry, not disappointed. Smaller. "We need to talk." "I know." "You know what this is about?" "Yes." A pause, paper shuffling, breathing. "You could have warned me." I leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling fan turning slowly above me. "I did. Years ago, at Thanksgiving, you told me not to dig." Another pause. "That was different. This affects your sister, her marriage, her future. So did banning me from the wedding." Silence. I didn't push. I never needed to. He filled it himself. "They're saying the photo reactivated something, some dormant case. They're asking about money flows, about why Robert was even there." I let him talk. That's another thing people misunderstand about quiet men. We don't need to win arguments. We let people explain themselves into corners. "You told everyone he was dead to you, but you invited him to a wedding full of federal contractors. Did you forget cameras exist? He helped me once, long ago. I owed him." There's no such thing as owing someone who committed fraud. There's only timing. He exhaled hard. "Can you fix this?" That was the moment. Not the investigation, not the wedding ban, not the humiliation.
That question, because it meant he finally understood who had leverage. "I won't fix anything," I said, "but I won't lie either." The call ended shortly after. Claire watched me hang up. "How bad?" she asked. "Bad for him," I said. "Neutral for us." She nodded. "Your sister texted again." I didn't ask what it said. I already knew the tone. Daniel Hargrove was a man who'd grown up believing consequences were negotiable. His family had money the way some families have accents, natural, inherited, unquestioned. They owned development firms, had seats on boards, donated to hospitals. His father, Michael Hargrove, was the kind of man who smiled in photos but never with his eyes. I'd met Daniel twice. Once at the engagement dinner, where he shook my hand too firmly and spoke to me like I was a temporary inconvenience. Once at my parents' house, when he laughed and said, "So what do you do, exactly?" "I manage systems," I said. He nodded like that confirmed everything he already believed. Michael Hargrove did not laugh when federal compliance officers asked why a restricted individual was present at his son's wedding. He did not laugh when his legal team informed him that the venue contract included a clause about undisclosed risk exposure. And he did not laugh when one of his junior partners quietly admitted that Robert Hale's name appeared in an old investment structure tied to a Hargrove subsidiary. The illusion cracked fast. Money hides many things. Paper trails hide none. By Wednesday, my sister showed up at my door. She looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically, structurally, like something had been pulled out from under her. "You ruined everything," she said. I stepped aside and let her in. She walked past Claire without looking at her and stood in the living room, arms crossed. "They're saying the wedding photos are being archived. Daniel's parents canceled the honeymoon. His dad won't take calls. People are whispering." I waited. "You knew it, didn't you?" she said finally. "Yes." "And you didn't stop it?" "No." Her eyes flashed. "Because you weren't invited?" I shook my head slowly. "Because lies rot, eventually." She laughed once, sharp and bitter. "You always do this. You sit there like you're above it all, like you're smarter." "I'm not smarter. I'm just not afraid of being uncomfortable." She stared at me. "You could have saved us." "No," I replied. "I could have delayed it." That landed. She sank onto the couch. "They're talking about investigations, about Dad, about Daniel's uncle, about things I don't even understand." "I do," I said gently. She looked up. "Of course you do." That night, Daniel called me for the first time. No greeting. "What did you tell them?" he asked. "I answered questions," I said. "You had no right. This is my family." "I married into yours. You don't get to choose which parts count." He scoffed. "You think you're some kind of hero?" I smiled, though he couldn't see it. "No," I said. "I'm just not afraid of being uncomfortable." A pause. "Do you know what this could cost us?" "Yes." "And you're fine with that?" "I didn't set the price. You just tried to avoid paying it." He hung up. By Friday, Robert Hale's name was officially back in circulation, not on Facebook, in filings, in memos, in rooms where silence meant something. My father was placed on administrative leave pending review. Daniel's father issued a carefully worded statement about unexpected disclosures. The wedding video never got released. The photos were quietly replaced with neutral shots. My sister stopped posting entirely. That evening, I received an email marked confidential. It wasn't a request. It was a notice. They wanted a sworn statement, full cooperation, timeline, context, everything. Everything I knew. Claire read it over my shoulder. "You okay doing this?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "I've been doing it my whole life." I sat at the desk and began typing. No anger, no bitterness, just facts. Dates, names, moments I'd noticed when no one thought it mattered. When I finished, I signed it, calmly, cleanly, like a man closing a door he'd held open for too long. At 2:14 a.m., my phone buzzed again. One message, from my father. "I didn't know you were capable of this." I stared at it, then I typed back, "You never asked." Outside, the desert wind moved over the sand, reshaping things quietly. Inside, the story people told about me was changing, and for the first time, I wasn't trying to correct it.
The investigation didn't explode. It settled. That's what scared them. There were no sirens, no headlines with flashing words, no agents storming offices with boxes. Just meetings, calendar invites, neutral subject lines, request for clarification, follow-up regarding prior disclosure, please confirm availability. The kind of language that doesn't accuse but doesn't forget. My father called less after that. When he did, he sounded careful, like every word was being weighed before release.
"They're asking about things I don't remember," he said once. "Accounts from years ago, conversations. Why would they care now?" "Because now they can," I replied. He didn't argue. Daniel tried a different approach. He showed up, no warning, just rang the doorbell one afternoon while Claire and I were eating lunch. I saw his car through the window first. Black sedan, washed too often, still trying to look unbothered. Claire stood up. "Do you want me to—" "No," I said, "it's fine." I opened the door. He didn't offer a hand this time. "You don't look sorry," he said. "I'm not," I replied. He stepped inside without being invited and glanced around like he was inventorying value, furniture, space, calm. "So this is it," he said, "the guy nobody wanted at the wedding." I closed the door behind him. "You didn't want me," I corrected. "There's a difference." He turned. "Do you have any idea what you've done to my family?" "Yes." "And you still think you're right?" "I think you built something on rot," I said, "and now you're surprised it smells." His jaw tightened. "You think this ends with my father?" he asked. "You think people like us fall quietly?" I looked at him carefully. "This doesn't end, it resolves." He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You're enjoying this," he accused. I shook my head. "You're mistaking relief for enjoyment." That stopped him. For the first time, he looked uncertain. "You could have been someone," he said finally, "if you just played along." I met his eyes. "I am someone," I said. "I just don't need witnesses." He left without another word. Claire watched from the hallway. "That went restrained," she said. "I meant every word," I replied. The first consequence landed publicly the following week. Michael Hargrove resigned from 2 boards to focus on family matters. The statement was brief, polished, meaningless, but people noticed. So did the banks. So did the partners who didn't like their names appearing anywhere near the word review. Daniel's calls stopped after that. My sister didn't call either. She sent an email instead. 3 paragraphs, no greeting. She said she felt betrayed, that she'd trusted me, that I'd always been distant, judgmental, impossible to read, that maybe if I'd been more normal, more present, she would have understood what I was capable of. I read it once, then I closed it. The hardest meeting wasn't with investigators, it was with my mother. She came alone, sat at our kitchen table like she used to when I was a kid, hands folded, eyes tired. "You could have protected him," she said softly. "I did," I replied, "for years." She looked up. "From what?" "From himself." Tears welled. "He's your father." "Yes." "And you let them tear him apart." "No," I said. "I stopped holding the walls together." She wiped her eyes. "Do you even love us?" I didn't answer right away. "I love you," I said, "but love doesn't mean disappearing so other people can feel clean." She nodded slowly, like she was absorbing something new. "He says you've always resented him," she said. I smiled faintly. "He resented what he couldn't control." She didn't argue. Before she left, she paused at the door. "I didn't know you were this steady," she said. I didn't respond. Weeks passed. The systems kept moving. Old accounts were examined, partnerships unraveled. Timelines were reconstructed by people who didn't care about feelings. My father wasn't arrested. That surprised everyone. Instead, he was sidelined, consulted, reduced. His reputation, the thing he'd guarded most carefully, was now something others spoke about in the past tense. Daniel's marriage strained under the weight of it all.
my sister moved back into my parents' house temporarily. The wedding album stayed unopened. One afternoon, my supervisor stopped by my desk. "Off the record," he said, sitting down. "You're handling this well." "It's not mine to handle," I replied. He smiled. "You know what I mean." He leaned in slightly. "There's talk of moving you, promotion, different division." I raised an eyebrow. "Because of this?" "Because you saw it before anyone else," he said, "and you didn't panic." I considered that. "Let me think about it," I said. "Take your time." I watched him walk away. Quiet power doesn't announce itself. It waits until it's invited. That night, Claire and I sat on the porch watching the sun disappear behind the hills. "Do you regret it?" she asked. "No," I said. "Even knowing what it cost?" "Yes." She nodded, satisfied. Inside, my phone buzzed. A final message from Daniel. "You think you won." I typed back one line. This was never a game. I turned the phone off and slid it into my pocket. Behind us, the house was still. Ahead of us, the desert stretched wide and indifferent. And somewhere far away, people were realizing that the man they dismissed had never been small. He'd just been waiting. Part 4. The collapse didn't come with a bang. It came with distance. That's how reputations actually die. Not in scandal, but in rooms you're no longer invited into. My father used to start his mornings with calls, advisory boards, old friends, people who just wanted his take. Now his phone stayed quiet until late afternoon, when someone needed a document or a clarification or a signature that no longer carried weight. He called me one last time near the end, not to ask for help, to understand. I spent my whole life building something, and it feels like it vanished overnight. I was standing in the garage, organizing boxes I hadn't opened since we moved in. It didn't vanish, it just stopped being protected. He swallowed. I could hear it. "You always watched," he said. "I should have realized." "Yes, you should have." There was nothing left to say after that. Daniel and my sister separated quietly. No announcement, no statement. She told people it was pressure and timing and too much too fast. He told people nothing. He moved back east, took a consulting role far from the family name that had once carried him. The illusion of power followed him like a shadow, long, thin, useless. Michael Hargrove's remaining board seats expired without renewal. No scandal, just expiration. That's how the world signals it's done with you. I accepted the promotion. Different division, different city, same kind of work. Systems, oversight, the spaces where things either break or hold. Before we left for Nevada, my sister asked to meet, just the two of us. We sat in a coffee shop near the highway, neutral ground. She looked older, not tired, clearer. "I didn't see you," she said. "Not really." "I know," I replied. "I thought power looked like confidence, like being wanted." I stirred my coffee slowly. "Power looks like being unnecessary and still choosing to be honest." She nodded, eyes wet but steady. "I'm sorry," she said, "for the wedding, for everything." I accepted it without ceremony. That mattered to her more than forgiveness. On our last night in Nevada, Claire and I stood in the empty house. "Do you okay leaving all this?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "I never needed to stay." She smiled. "You're not awkward, you know." "I know," I replied. "I think they just couldn't hear you." I turned off the lights. Months later, I saw my father once more. At a small gathering, no speeches, no spotlight. He looked at me differently now, carefully, like someone finally reading the fine print. "You were right," he said quietly, "about everything." I didn't respond, not because I wanted him to hurt, but because understanding arrived too late to require a reply. That night, as we drove home, my phone buzzed with a memory notification, an old photo suggestion, from years ago. A family dinner, everyone smiling. I deleted it without hesitation. Some moments only exist to show you what you survived. I wasn't banned from the wedding because I was awkward. I was banned because I didn't play along. And that's when they finally understood. Too late.